We're told that Jesus is the God of all things. For most of us, we need to be shown. But Jesus says, well, let me show you. All right, hey, this is Dave Scher, and I want to talk about when suffering becomes suffering. And we're going to kind of continue this conversation because it turns out that suffering is a big part of the kingdom of God. And we started this conversation a couple of weeks ago. Last time we were together, we were talking about Joseph and his sufferings. And here at 100-fold Ministries, we're trying to unpack the gospel of the kingdom. And apparently suffering is part of that understanding of the gospel of the kingdom. So I want you to hang with me. I'm not going to whine, at least. I'm not trying to whine. I'm trying to just count, but maybe I'm whining. You let me know if I'm whining. Just let me know. Text me, email me, something. But I want to talk a little bit about my own suffering, the suffering of Susan and I, because this sharing, I think, falls into the category of, for me anyway, things that I wish were different. I have a category, I have a column of things I wish were different. I don't know, maybe you've got a column like that too. We probably need to be careful that we don't get too wigged out making our list of those things. But let me just kind of break through some of the stuff that I've gone through in my 71, almost 72 years. So I've had 6 knee surgeries, and 2 of them were replacement surgeries. One, my right knee had an infection, and that laid me out for over a month. It took me a long time, 10 years, to have the courage to do my second knee, which I just did a year ago. And so I've had those 6 knee surgeries. I've had 2 surgeries on my hands, and then 3 other painful procedures on my hands. That's because I'm filled with arthritis. It's just not much fun. I've had rotator cuff surgery on my shoulder. And weirdly, I had a stroke in my right eye, in the optic nerve of my right eye. My right eye works just fine. I just don't get any signal from my nerves back to my brain. And so my right eye is blind. And so you should be careful if you see me on the road. You're going to want to stay on my left side, just saying. But I'm blind in one eye. 4 years ago, am I whining now? I feel like I might be whining. 4 years ago, I had a 4-level fusion in my neck and my upper back. It was about an 8-hour surgery, a little longer than that. And they started on my front side, and they had to move my throat out of the way so that they could get to my spine. And then they turned me over and had operated on the back side for another 5 hours. Now I have trouble swallowing because they moved my throat over, and I have to chew a lot and drink water, and it's part of my life, my new life now, because of my 4-level fusion of my neck. I had to wear a neck brace 24/7 for about 6 weeks. And that turns out to be not as much fun as it sounds to try and sleep in a neck brace. And all of that has left me with chronic back pain. I live with upper back pain and degenerative disc disease. There'll be more surgery in my future. And I already spoke of the arthritis in my hands and toes. That's more than distracting. It actually hurts to type the notes that I have to type up for doing a podcast or working on my book. Physical pain, that's something. But it hasn't just been physical hurt, of course, that I've endured. And of course, just saying, you have your own stories too. I'm just sharing a bit of mine. Not just physical pain. My father passed away about 10 years ago. My wife's parents passed away during that time, all within about 6 months of each other. This might sound trite to you, but within about 2 months, our 2 cats, 18-year-old cats and our 18-year-old dachshund Princeton all died. And so in a short amount of time, we experienced, Susan and I, a fair amount of sadness and loss over these relationships, parental relationships. You know, I used to make fun of people that cried about their cats, but I cried when Gracie passed away. So I'm just getting started. I think now I'm whining. You can let me know. I want to talk about my wife for a second because We've been through some stuff. 26 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with full renal failure. She was dying at the age of 47. We had teenage kids. Dialysis was not an answer for her. She tried, but it wasn't a great answer. And she went on the transplant list, but we were informed it was a 3-year wait before there would be a kidney available to her. Essentially, that was a death sentence. She was not going to last 3 years. So I asked if I could be tested to see if I could donate one of my kidneys, and the surgeons were reluctant to even test me because it's so rare for a non-related person to be a transplant match. So that felt discouraging to me. It kind of angered me, and I became obnoxiously interested in being tested. And they kept telling me that they didn't want to waste my time and their time. But they don't know that when I hear no, I think it's another form of yes. And so eventually they tested me just to get me to shut up. And it turns out I was a near perfect transplant match. And so they were surprised. I wasn't so much. And they cut about a 10-inch incision in my back. 26 years ago was a pretty big deal to take a kidney out. And they took that kidney out gently and washed it in the sink, I guess, and then put it into my wife. And she was in the room right next to me. And through the grace of God, Susan's doing fine. 26 years of immunosuppression drugs in order to avoid the rejection of that kidney. That's been a hard journey, but we are so grateful for the extra 26 years. But it's been hard. I'm not sure if it qualifies as suffering, but it's been hard. And then we started another difficult season, and this is from 18 years ago. Susan suffered a massive brain hemorrhage from an aneurysm in her brain that ruptured. And she was rushed to emergency surgery. They coiled this aneurysm. She was rushed into emergency surgery. And she spent a month on the neurological ER floor at Swedish Hospital here in the Denver area. And during that time of intensive care, she experienced 5 more near-death events during recovery. It's hard to recover from these massive strokes. And months of recovery after that, physical, emotional, spiritual recovery. But 18 years later, you wouldn't know it. Susan's doing well. So, is that suffering? I don't know. These circumstances have been trials for sure for Susan and I. But still, when I think of these difficulties, even when I go through it now and I kind of go back through and categorize them and chart them, it's never really felt like suffering to me. I think there's this thing, you know it too. There's this thing called perspective that helps us to move difficult circumstances from the category of things I wish were different, like we talked about earlier, to the category of, oh, I see now how this suffering has had its purposes category. And it takes a little while to live in that things I wish were different category to be able to move them to the other side. It just takes time in life. We all have our list of things that we wish were different. The Apostle Paul did too. He had all kinds of hardships. And in his letters to the church in Corinth, he kind of unpacks them, not unlike what I just did, not so much to brag, but to help create perspective in the people that he loves. He says this, these are quotes from Paul. He says, I've worked harder than the other disciples. I don't know whether he has or not. He's worked pretty hard. I've been in prison more frequently. I've been flogged more severely. I've been exposed to death again and again, he says. 5 times I received from the Jews, from his own people, 40 lashes minus 1. When he says that, 40 lashes is execution. So they didn't want to execute him, so they only did 39. Paul says, 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. He was stoned to death. They left him for dead. 3 times I was shipwrecked, he says. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I've been constantly on the move. He doesn't have any place to call home. I've been in danger from rivers. I've been in danger from bandits. I've been in danger from my fellow Jews. I've been in danger from the Gentiles. It doesn't matter from what angle he's been in danger. He says, I've been in danger in the city. I've been in danger in the country. I've been in danger at sea. I've even been in danger from believers who are false believers. You can hear as he develops this sense of testimony about his hardships. He's trying to give perspective. He goes on, he says, I've labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I've known hunger and thirst. I've gone without food. I mean, his list is long. He's as good at whining as I am. I've been cold and naked. And then this powerful, powerful testimony at the end. And besides everything else, I face the daily pressures of my concern for all the churches. Physical hardship aside, his spiritual pain is off the chart. And you know what Paul called that? He did not call it suffering. Paul called such things momentary light afflictions. Really? Knowing that many around suffer great hardships for their faith in Christ gives me perspective. I know that others have a tougher time at it than I do. And that perspective gives me strength. It gives me endurance to persevere in the hardships of life. So, think about moving the things from your category of things I wish were different to things that I see that God has been working on. Over the next several Kingdom offerings, I want to talk a little bit more about the theology of suffering from God's perspective, not from mine. And I want to talk a little bit about wasted suffering and what it means to suffer well. So all these things are kind of in front of us as you come back and visit here at Kingdom Offerings. And so I invite you back to 100-fold Ministries webpage and to the Ministries of Kingdom Offerings. So this is Dave Scher, peace. And they say, we'll talk about this more a little bit later as we go. They say that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. We'll see about that.